So I've been aware of Emlyn Williams' work for a little while, and I read a number of his plays about 6 years ago, and this always kind of stuck out as the one I wanted to do, just because when I first read it, it sort of just sent shivers down my spine, and that's usually the test of a good play. But I'd kind of written it off in my mind. I didn't think I was going to have the chance to do it. So when I spoke to Neil here at the Finborough and suggested a number of things, we went through this sort of came up, and he said that he'd really like to see it done. He was the only other person in the world I knew who'd actually read the play as well, and it just seemed to make sense. So we went for it.
See it as a play that kind of explores the idea of hope and salvation, and how a community is affected by an incident. In this case, there's a historic tragedy that's a part of the narrative of the play. And so it's about how the community then deals with that, and then the bigger picture in relating to this particular play, of course, is the more global thing that's going on, the coming back from the Crimean War, bringing various kind of pestilence, typhus, and various other diseases with you, and how the community kind of is at a point of breaking apart. But something needs to kind of bring them back together again and give them hope in order to kind of rationalize what's happened and allow them to move forward and move away from that and recover. That's my summing up.
And I think it's so beautiful and relevant for today, because no, it's not the Crimea right now, but we have got a lot of problems. Yeah. And how are we going to counter it? What are we going to do to survive and get through it? Yeah. Let's hope we can stick together. And of course the Crimea, everybody was very, very anti how it was run, and the government and the army and what was done out there. So it's a very similar kind of situation to what's going on now. Yeah. I suppose when I think about what's the play about, or I say to a friend, oh, come and see it, and they go, what's it about? I kind of go, do you know what, it's just lovely. It's just so, it's so beautiful. I don't want to say too much about it. The writing is cracking. Emlyn Williams is just phenomenal. Just come, I don't even say like come with an open mind, I say just come with an open heart. Yeah,
that's a good way of putting it, yeah.
Because I think what's so incredible about it is you do get taken somewhere else which is a little unexpected. It's not like a play you've seen before.
And it's quite unusual these days to kind of come across a play like this, in fact, because it in some ways, some people might describe it as kind of, well, I'm not going to say old-fashioned, although I've already said it, but some people might kind of want to categorize it like that. But actually, if you, as you've just said, come with an open mind and an open heart to something, and open to a new experience, and to kind of be entertained by something different, and that's going to explore lots of ideas and options, and you can take bits of them away with you and just think about it probably, and I think that's the impact it'll have on the audience, don't you?
Because you can say, oh, it's about faith or it's about salvation, but actually it's kind of more surprising than that. It's, you will be entertained, and I think it's very easy to go, oh, it'll be terribly serious when we sit in the theatre and sort of nod our heads and go,
No, it's not like that.
There's people laughing away, and that's been so joyous over the past few nights to experience.
I would describe it as a very intriguing piece. It's a very unusual play. Can't think of any other play like it. And it's beautifully written. It's got some fantastic, interesting, intriguing characters in it. And it's a most unusual subject. And it's to do with the conflict between rationalism and spirituality, I would think. Would be a way of summing it up, but that doesn't really, makes it sound.
Yeah, but in a very kind of nuanced way as well, actually.
Very subtle, it's a very subtle piece.
Yeah, I feel like, Emlyn Williams was from North Wales, where I'm originally from, and I feel like a lot of the play is to do with his relationship, possibly with Wales as well.
Yes, with
his relationship with religion and his belief
the language.
System, and the language. But I think the play, if you had to kind of put it down into a few words, a lot of it's about hope and identity and faith. People
finding themselves, finding what they really believe in, some regret and optimism, and it's got all emotions in it. relationship of individuals to community.
Yeah.
It's a very clever piece of writing, and the amazing thing is that it hasn't been done in the last 75 years.
Yeah.
Since he wrote it in, the end of the war, end of the Second World War. So that's what was very fascinating about it to start with. Why has this play languished? Because it's so good.
Yeah.
And does it still feel relevant after 75 years?
Oh, it deals with really big questions. I mean, essential questions. It makes you think about yourself and your relationships.
Your own relationship, I suppose, with spirituality as well. You know, I think particularly at the moment in society where we're looking for a bit of light in the darkness. I think, and also, you know, obviously in London being in an interfaith place, I mean, the play doesn't specifically adhere to say that you have to believe in this, but it just opens up the question of, you know, a belief system, it's faith. And
what do you get if you have faith, and what's it like if you don't? So no, it makes everybody think. It's also very moving. This play is a very moving piece of writing, and you go on quite a journey, I would think, as an audience member watching it. We have, as we've rehearsed it.
Definitely.
It's a really good piece.
Kristy's always got a good description of it.
It's basically like this man from a circus comes to try and find a magical dwarf who turns out to be Jesus. Meanwhile, people are dying from the Crimean plague, but Jesus brings them back to life.
Yeah, I mean, she's done all the work for that, really. And it's also it's a show about like
people coming together.
Yeah, human connection, finding links with each other, and finding a way out of like despair and finding hope and grief. Yeah, exactly. But that's a better description of what it is.
You wouldn't not want to go after listening to that.
Absolutely, yeah.
It sounds like a Mighty Boosh episode.
It does. It was written in 1945.
I would say, it's very unusual. That's probably a starting point, but I think is a tremendous benefit, because there is not a play that I have ever read that is similar to this one. It's about, I've always said that it's about a sort of bit of a roguish sort of con man that goes back to his sort of ancestral town, and is faced with sort of his previous demons, and there's lots of magic in it, not in a sort of literal sense, but kind of there's this sort of there's this big Celtic theme of and the difference between his kind of corporate money grabbing kind of background and then the sort of rich and wild landscape of Wales and the songs and all that sort of the sort of Celtic culture, and it's about sort of him rediscovering himself and being sort of released through the kind of, without sounding too cheesy, the magic of Wales.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it's about I think that what really drew me to it is, I think religion is a subject matter that people shy away from because it feels quite sensitive and quite daunting. And although the play deals with religion, I think it, in the last gasp, comes down quite neutrally on religion. And I think what Emlyn Williams was probably writing about was the power of stories to like mobilize people and motivate their behavior, whether or not the stories are true. And I think when you kind of build in grief and desperation, and the sort of faithlessness that goes with times of great greed and times of great division where we don't feel united, stories have an enormous power to bring people together and kind of direct their behaviour, for better or worse. And we're seeing that at the moment with appropriation of stories to kind of steer people towards nationalism, but we know that stories can also help give people an identity and a sense of shared purpose which can do good in the world. And I think that's what really caught me about the play, that it's just an amazingly local and sensitive parable about some really big questions that I think affect us all in that respect, and told really beautifully through just some lovely, well-observed characters which clearly relate to the writer's history, in a beautiful setting, as Bertie said, which is quite inspiring.
It's a hugely human story about grief and about faith versus sort of rationality, and it's every character has a different relationship to either faith or being rational, and there's always this tug in either direction. And I think that's also why it is so relevant and it feels contemporary, and it is still relevant now, is because actually, even though on the surface it is about faith, I think it's, for a modern audience, it's slightly more nuanced than that, and it's very much because the writing is so subtle and beautiful. It's actually about people trying to get through their grief, and sort of trying to find some sort of solace in whatever method they choose to.
And there's no mistake that he was writing about a time, 1856, just after the Crimean War, where the government had massively the government and the military had created massive errors that they weren't held to account over, and he was writing right at the end of the Second World War, and the play itself was performed 3 weeks before the end of the Second World War, about that time. And it feels like there are certain similarities with today and the behaviour of our government and the direction we're all heading in. I think that what we hope is that people come out of the play feeling a sense of hope or belonging to something that's bigger than just our own worldly kind of trials and tribulations, and an appreciation for what unites us rather than divides us, really. So yeah.
To be honest, I haven't read any of his plays until this one, so I'm going to say not. But I was there for 3 years. So they could have done loads of Emlyn just before me and just after me, and I wouldn't know. So, but yeah.
But did you know any of his work?
No, I didn't. I've got to say I didn't. And they talk about him being the Welsh Noel Coward. Obviously, I've heard of Noel Coward and read lots of his plays and seen lots of it performed, but I knew of Accolade, which obviously did very well and was here and transferred, but I didn't see it. And no, I'd not seen any of his work, so it was kind of exciting to discover a new playwright, more new to me.
I'm only familiar with the more more commonly performed plays. Corners Green, of course, in particular. But I hadn't even heard of this play, I have to be honest with you. And no surprise, really, because I'm not that old and I didn't see it performed in London last time it was performed. So
1945.
Yeah.
Did you know of any of his work or seen any of his films?
Well, Accolade, of course, that was here in 2011, and I had friends in that and was just blown away by it, and saw it when it transferred as well. And again, like entertained, surprised, wowed by the writing and incredible acting. So when I heard about it, I was particularly excited.
Well, there are the ones that do get done every now and then. Corners Green is one, isn't it? There are 2 or 3 of his plays that I suppose I knew or have seen films of or whatever. But and he was a very busy man of the theatre when he was, in his heyday. But I find the younger generation don't know about him.
Well, I knew particularly about Emlyn Williams because I grew up in Mould in North Wales, and of course the studio there is called the Emlyn Williams Theatre, so I knew from a very young age that it was named after him, so yeah, that was kind of interesting.
Well, one of the very nice things about the cast we've got is that 2, 3 of you are Welsh, and Seiriol is a fluent Welsh speaker, isn't he? So. Yeah. And we've got this wonderful element in this play is that occasionally you hear Welsh spoken, and it's just magic on stage, and mixed in with all the English. Suddenly you get this beautiful sections of just a sentence or 2 in Welsh, and it has an electrifying effect on stage. It's there are lots of subtle things in this play, and he knew what he was doing. He was a real man of the theatre, and he knew how to tell a story and how to reel in an audience.
Yeah, and I think to a certain extent it has a kind of traditional 3-act structure to it, doesn't it? In a sense. So the story is very strong, isn't it? I think.
Absolutely, it's a very satisfying piece from a storytelling point of view to play, and also I would think if you're sitting watching it, you get drawn into it and be very moved by the end of the play.
It's incredible writing. It's a really interesting play to be performed now because I don't think there's many plays like this on. It's it's very unusual. It's very poetic. There's some really beautiful speeches in it and beautiful descriptions and depictions of grief.
It's really fun for an actor's point of view to do those. But also what I like about it is like actually doing it has made me realise how good it is.
Yeah,
like
absolutely. Reading it is not the same as getting on its feet.
And you're like, oh, you find out so much more when you're doing it, and it's like, you're like, oh, cool. A bit like Shakespeare.
Absolutely, like you have to get it on its feet to really understand what it's about. I think the first 2 weeks of rehearsals we were still figuring out what the play was about. So yeah, the actual performing of it and the doing of it is what's good.
I think the reason what attracted me when Will approached me with it was because I'm an actor as well, and I trained in Wales, and so I think and I'd seen Emlyn Williams's plays there, so I knew the name, I knew he had good quality work, and it excited me that it was Welsh work being put on in London, especially with the Welsh language, and so I saw it as a great opportunity to kind of, you know, firstly do some fantastic writing, but then also introduce, you know, the London theatre scene to some, because most of his other plays are quite English society plays, whereas this one is actually a little bit more kind of goes back to his roots, and I found that really exciting and unusual, and so yeah, I thought the London theatre scene would benefit from a bit of an unusual Welsh play.
Well, I play Bet, and Bet is the servant to Dilys, the main lady in the house. Bet, there's no spoilers, is there?
No, you've got to not give
I've got to not give any spoilers away, so I'm just going to say she's a servant from a troubled background, and Dilys has taken her in. What I will say is that she becomes quite significant, doesn't she?
Very significant.
In the play, so I suppose on the page it looks like, oh, she's a servant of this lady of the house, but actually her role becomes quite a big one in terms of the story and the spirituality of the piece.
It's
Best
amazing.
not say anymore,
no, probably not, but there are amazing surprises in the play, and they're carefully placed at different points so that there's a gradual understanding of what's going on here.
And what about you, though? Who do you play?
Well, I play a rather cynical observer of what's going on. My role in the play is Pitter, and he's the manager of a circus. And I have come to this village because I've heard a good story, and I'm trying to check it out. It might be of use to us, what's happening in this village. And then I start noting what's going on. I've got an idea of what's going on, and then I'm watching everybody's reactions. So I'm very much I got a feeling in a way that it's almost like the writer of the play watching the characters.
I definitely think he's put himself.
I think there's a lot of Emlyn Williams in my.
Yeah, I think so.
Although there's also the more obvious Emlyn Williams role, which is the part he wrote for himself, which you'll be talking to other people about that, I'm sure. But there is a part that's how he saw himself and what contribution he can make originally to it, and it's the leading role, and so it's a very good part for him as a young man.
It feels a very personal story from his perspective.
There are lots of very personal things in it, aren't there? It's written from the heart and written from a great sense of community in that part of rural Wales.
Well, I can't really say too much.
You mustn't say too much.
I'm playing Mrs. Lake, and I'm very much the other. So I'm not from this Welsh village, and I'm kind of there to upset the apple cart, I suppose, or upset the harmony is probably more appropriate of the moment, I suppose.
I don't. Yeah, it's difficult to know how much to say really in terms of your character. But so maybe that's a good place to leave it. Otherwise, if I say too much, it might.
And what about you?
Well, my character he's kind of represents really the village community. The terrible tragedy that happened some years previous to this play, when the play is set, I was very personally affected by it. Should I say what the tragedy was? No, I shouldn't. No. Okay, it's a tragedy. But we can think of it in terms of Aberfan, actually, the Aberfan disaster in the 1960s, and how that touched that community. So my character he's the person that people seem to turn to for some reason, to give them guidance and to kind of help them move forward. So that's my role within the community. Yeah.
I play Maynard, who is your niece, and she's very she's like the young spirit. She's very happy, very naive, very much in love, and throughout the play she goes through a life-changing experience. From that grows up so much, and well, actually I'm giving away way too much.
You have said a lot about the plot now, so.
But she just grows up a lot, that's what I'm trying to say.
Get in trouble for that.
Yeah, she goes through a journey. But she starts off really ignorant, and then she becomes quite sensible.
She goes through some stuff.
Yeah, she goes through it a lot.
I play Dilys, who is Maynard's aunt. She is a widowed woman living in this house in Wales that she's inherited from her uncle. And she's a kind of feminist, almost matriarch of the house. So she's living with Maynard, who's her niece, her servant Bet, who she's sort of taken in from, seems like she was living on the streets. And she's a pretty feisty character to have been written in the 1940s and be set in the 1860s. She's very outspoken, she knows her own mind, but she's also coming from this place of being quite emotionally numbed and dead to the world. So her journey is one of kind of rediscovering a purpose for living and trying to find hope and faith throughout the play. So she starts at this quite sort of cold, dark place, and we see where she goes from there. She's a great character, and yeah, I think quite quite unusually headstrong, which is exciting to play.
Why were you attracted to producing and not acting in it?
Because I didn't see myself in it, really. It was more of an opportunity to get all the talented Welsh people that I know involved, and yeah, spread the word.
Yeah, we've been really lucky with the cast. There's a number of authentic Welsh people in it, and a Welsh speaker as well. In fact, I think they all speak a little bit of Welsh, don't they, the Welsh people in it? So it's been really kind of enriching to have that sort of cultural authenticity in it. We were very keen to make sure that it was as sort of authentic to what Emlyn Williams was trying to say as possible, and hopefully we've gone some way towards achieving that.
And how did you go about casting it? Did you know any of the actors already, or seen their work, or...?
Yeah, we kind of put the feelers out for recommendations from people. We spoke to a lot of agents for suggestions. There's a great kind of Welsh theatre production company called Chippy Lane Productions who sent us a number of recommendations. And a lot of kind of personal contacts. It was just sort of like casting the net wide, and we had lucked out so much. They're the most extraordinarily talented group of people, and they've all been, without exception, a complete joy to work with, and have really, in a collaborative way, made the show what it is. It's no single person's vision. It's a shared kind of collaboration.
And we wanted to make sure that there was. We talked long and hard about because the play is a lot about community, and we wanted to make it feel like there was lots of different cross sections of people. So we've cast. Really sort of the difference in ages is huge. I mean, we've got the whole sort of across the generations of people. We've got different voice qualities, and that was really important to us to kind of get a taste of lots of different flavours and types of people. So that was also quite tricky of getting the balance right during the casting, because we had people that were a bit similar, and we wanted to make sure that there was a nice variety of people that would represent this kind of rich community.
Tell me about what it's been like to work together, the seven of you.
Oh, it's been amazing.
Yeah, it's been really cool because everyone's so different, and everyone, like the characters actually.
Yes, we've all become the characters a bit.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
That's a bit weird. But it's actually banging.
The cast are so nice.
They're so lovely. They make me laugh.
Yeah.
From Jamie makes me jump all the time.
Jamie's a troublemaker.
Yeah.
So he's always leading people astray in the rehearsal room. But it's lots of different personalities, and it's been really. I've loved working with lots of Welsh actors as well, and there's some Welsh speaking in the play. So Seiriol has been. He's been teaching all the Welsh to everybody, and that's been amazing to like reconnect with my Welsh heritage a few steps removed. But it's just fun, and also I think on a play like this where there's quite a lot of like serious themes in it,
you have more
fun.
Yeah,
you really do, because it's so intense, and then you just laugh hysterically.
Yeah.
And how's it been working with each other?
Oh, we've been awful.
Actually, like, joyous. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it has,
absolutely,
hasn't it? Yes.
And Christmas coming up, and just lots of giggles and.
Yeah, it's been a very relaxed working atmosphere in the 4 weeks of rehearsal that we had.
Created by Will, our director, who's been phenomenal.
Yeah, he really did kind of set that kind of scene, really, didn't he? In terms of everyone's approach to working together. I mean, it's always interesting, isn't it, when you kind of first meet your fellow actors in a particular production. You always have a very limited time to kind of get that thing together. But we all gelled really from day one, I'd say.
Oh my God, the read-through.
Yeah.
Day one happened to be my birthday. And we, opened these scripts. Will gave this phenomenal kind of speech beforehand that made me go, oh my God, he's going to be an amazing director. And we read it, and it was phenomenal. And it was there, you go, great, everyone is talented, everyone knows what they're doing, this is incredibly professional, I can't wait to get started.
Yeah, and Will was very passionate about it, because even in the casting process, he told me, I'm sure he told you as well, that it was something that he'd been wanting to kind of direct and produce for many years since he first came across the play. And so his passion and his excitement to get this show on the road and make it work certainly affected us all, hasn't it?
Contagious.
Yeah.
Oh, Will's great. So Will Maynard is our director, and I was, we were saying to him last night that I think he has a great tone with his actors in that he is very generous, so he allows his actors to explore. But equally, I feel like he has a very clear vision of what he wanted. He's wanted to put this play on for, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I think he had a clear vision of what he wanted. And what I'm so impressed with is the team that he's pulled together. He's pulled in so much talent. People from the producers, the sound and lighting and the set, and really is an incredibly high standard of people that
and
collaborating
there's some
with.
Beautiful singing in this play as well, which has been written. The music's been written especially by Rhiannon, hasn't it? And it's just
Julian's sound
beautiful.
And I think Will, that's all credit to Will, actually.
Yeah, people are going to come and work for him on a project like this.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, everybody has such respect for him. He's
and trust. I think trust is really important, isn't it, when you're exploring kind of, my character goes through the wrong a bit, doesn't she?
Well, a lot of them, the emotional gamut, really. And Will has kept a very... I agree with that entirely. He's kept a very tight control of it, at the same time allowing it to breathe and people to bring what they can to it. So it's been a very good rehearsal process.
It has, and very harmonious, hasn't it?
Amazing, Everybody gets on so well. I mean, people always say that in interviews about the companies they're in, but it's actually
really
true.
Has.
It really is true. It's been a lovely company. And as you said to me the other day, what you liked about it was that we got all the generations in this play. We've got a very young character. I won't say any more about that. And
20s,
30s, 40s,
50s.
Probably, I don't know. And then 70s, yes.
So that's quite nice to have that intergenerational.
Well, the reason I keep
dynamic.
working, really, partly to keep myself sane and to learn stuff, keep my brain ticking over. But I just love working with younger people. It's just great. The energy you get in a company it was nothing like it.
Will is amazing. He's so nice.
His notes are banging.
Oh yeah.
He gives the best notes.
And he manages to do it, like he totally knows what he wants and how to get it, but he manages to do it in a way where you don't feel like you've done the worst bit of acting that he's ever seen.
It's very true.
It's always like,
it's like 2 stars and a wish.
Yeah, that.
No, he's so sweet and lovely and just...
And a very open rehearsal process, always taking on board offers from the actors, and it feels like
collaborative.
Yeah, we've built the show together as opposed to it being like a dictatorship of this is the show we're doing. Yeah. But I think we've realised actually what his vision is as well. Without it, I think he just magically found a way of us all getting there together.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about the Finborough Theatre. Have either of you seen stuff here before?
No, first time.
Yeah, I haven't either, actually.
It's such a cool space. I love it. I love like small theatres. They're my favourite always, because I just feel like everyone's like in the room. It's great.
It's so exciting, especially in Traverse as well, the way it's set up at the moment.
Yeah.
That the audience is really there with you, and I feel like this play is a big play and something that you wouldn't expect to see in such an intimate setting. So that's an amazing opportunity for audiences to come and see something like this that you could see a version playing out in a much bigger kind of cross arch type stage. And the Finborough is amazing for bringing back, for championing a play that hasn't been performed in 75 years. They, when I told my mum that I got the job, she then did all this research and was like, I know, I've read up on the Finborough, and they do lots of rediscovered plays, and they do this sort of stuff. So yeah, I think it's a pretty amazing opportunity to bring back a play.
It's also ideal to have a pub downstairs.
Yeah. Dangerous.
So I worked here probably about 6 years ago on something, on the first Welsh language play, fully complete Welsh language play, that was staged here, with surtitles, of course. But we had a great run with that, actually, and our kind of short little run had to be extended due to popular demand. Yeah, that was great. So I have worked here. It's a great, fantastic theatre to come along and be a part of.
Yeah, and perform in.
It has a great loyal following, and there's, well, in my experience anyway, there's always a great atmosphere here.
And is it nice to be back?
It is nice to be back. Yeah, it's great actually. I love it. I was really excited when this opportunity came along, and yeah, I was excited that I was offered the part, and then that I was able to kind of pick it up.
I've been here 2 or 3 times. Yes, I've always enjoyed playing here. I did a play called London Wall, which was another wonderful rediscovery by John Van Druten. I'd never heard of him, and we came and did this play, and it was an amazing success. And in fact, we transferred it to what was the St James's Theatre, and is now called something silly like the Other Palace.
So tell me more about the Finborough. What's it like to be back?
Oh, I love it. I mean, this acting space is magic. It's great, and if you looked at our set, you know, we've got this wonderful set for it, and a beautiful floor, and the Welsh dresser type construction, which is a work of art, like an art installation. And you've got this wonderful intimate atmosphere here. It only seats 50 people, I think. And we're playing this in the Traverse, so the audience are on 2 sides of us, which is technically quite an interesting challenge too, from an actor's point of view and from the director's point of view. You've got to make sure that where the focus is in the scene, and people aren't pulling the focus when it should be concentrated on one person. And as an actor, you've got to make sure that you are seen and heard by everybody in the space. And it doesn't require a big voice at all in here, because it's a very quiet, intimate atmosphere.
I think you naturally sort of...
You sort of adjust
we were in a massive rehearsal room.
We were in a vast rehearsal room.
And I think naturally we're going a little bit more intimate with some part.
Well, you know, you can't you? You can take it right down here, and everybody, as long as you speak clearly, and that people will hear you and be absorbed in the story. And we had a full house last night, and it was a great feeling, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
Great feeling to play. I think, you know, theatre more and more, for me, is more satisfactory in smaller spaces. When I go to the West End now, I think, why have I paid all this money? I can't see properly, can't hear properly. And then you go to things that are mic'd, and you've got this generalised sound. Even a theatre where I worked for years, the Open Air Theatre in Regent's Park, when I used to work there a long time ago, the idea of being mic'd was ridiculous. Now everybody's mic'd, and you don't really, sometimes you don't even know who's speaking, because the sound comes through the big speakers, and on a crowded stage, sometimes you can't hear who it is. You can't identify who's speaking. And I love now smaller spaces to work in. And the last couple of jobs I've done have been the Old Red Lion in Islington and the Pleasance Theatre in North London, and they're both wonderful intimate spaces as well. And I think you know, people can go and get a completely different experience. You can also go to Hamilton and get this, you know, pay £100 for your seat and see a spectacular show.
Yeah.
But I think the future of theatre is in smaller spaces.
I mean, I love performing in small spaces. I do comedy, and often we're in little intimate rooms, and I like being able to have people really close. So most of my experience is working in little small rooms like this. It's different because with comedy you're very aware of the audience and playing to them, whereas with this it's like, no, we're in our own little space, you're here as well, but not turning it out. But I love it. I think something really magical happens when you're in a room with not very many people. There's no hiding.
Same.
There's no hiding for them either.
It makes the atmosphere like
it's really electric,
more,
isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not like you're in, you know, you're on your stage on your own, that people could be here or they couldn't. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's better.
Yeah, I think it's better as well. You get more for your money as an audience member as well, because you can see what's going on. You're not sat at the back of...
basically.
Yeah, exactly. Every seat in the house is front row seat, really.
So true.
I suppose I'm a loyal fan. Yeah, I probably come every few months. In fact, I saw the last show that was here, Chemistry. That was brilliant. And it's just, I don't know. It's so intimate. You can't help but just being drawn in.
Yeah.
And that's lovely for the actor and lovely for the audience.
Yeah, it's a tiny room, really.
Yeah.
You know, we squeezed 50 members of the audience and 6 or 7 or 8 of us in the cast.
Yeah, there's no escape.
No.
It's got such a great reputation for really being one of the best off-West End theatres in London, and it's run by a really very talented individual. Neil is just such a kind of he's involved in every aspect of the production and really setting a high bar for us, and always saying, you know, you can do better, but he's endlessly supportive on all aspects of it. So, you know, and I'd heard from friends who'd worked here, it was just an amazing place to work, and it's really turned out that way. It's just a great team, and just a lot of support available from everything from casting to marketing, and they've got a really loyal audience base that I think have tapped into and seem to be enjoying the play by all accounts as well. So yeah, it seemed like the right place. The other thing is they have a good relationship with Emily Williams' work. They produced a production of one of his plays, Accolade, in 2011, which went on to transfer to the West End and brought that back to light after many years. And also they did a Welsh language play here a few years ago, which again was quite a rare thing for London theatre. So it seemed to make sense in all sorts of ways. It seemed to be like the right home for it. Yeah.
What is the space like to direct in?
This space, well, it's really flexible, and one of our first decisions with the designer was kind of how do we want to lay it out, because you can do it in sort of a traditional end-on setting, or you can do it in the round, or you can do like a thrust staging, or you can do what we've chosen to do with it, which is traverse. And we sort of landed on traverse because we wanted to do something that felt like you were in the room with the cast, and that you were part of their world, which I think this setting lends itself to quite well. But also we wanted to do something which had created a spectrum. We've got an amazing designer on this, Ceci Kauf, and she and I were quite keen to have a sort of design aesthetic which on the one hand represented spiritualism, and on the other hand was sort of like worldly possessions and materialism, and I think the traverse staging allowed us that kind of spectrum and those two extremes to be built into the concept for the set. But yeah, it's quite intimate, but the traverse setting is the best sort of use of space, I think, because you actually end up activating all of the available space rather than kind of wasting any of it for entrances. So yeah, it's a nice space to direct in.
It suits the play as well, because the play is so subtle and beautiful, and the language is so nuanced. It really benefits from an intimate space.
Yeah, the audience can really lean in, can't they, and feel part of it. And you don't need to sort of as an actor, you don't need to over emote or kind of show that much. It's all just kind of there for the audience to see.
Tell me about the music, how that developed and how it fits into the play.
Well, we've just been so lucky to have two amazing musicians. Rhiannon Drake is a composer and sort of musical director and lyricist, and she has created a number of choral pieces for the play, which sort of come in the second half as the community in the play sort of rediscover song. And then Julian Starr is a sound designer and composer who's worked quite a bit at the Finborough before, and he's composed this sort of quite abstract soundtrack which tries to encompass the sort of worldliness and also the kind of spiritualism of the play in both at once, really. So that was a sort of three-way collaboration, thinking what bits of music or sound would be appropriate. I'm amazed by what they've achieved. It's just so beyond what I could have hoped, and it's such a lovely, set of pieces to listen to. Yeah.
And finally, what do you hope an audience will take from this play?
It's too easy just to say hope, but I think that at Christmas is quite a lovely thing to come away.
Well, I think it's just kind of just thinking about if at times of despair, just thinking about what your options are. I think at times of despair, it's very easy to just kind of sink down to the bottom, and to struggle to find ways out of that. Whereas I think this gives the audience the opportunity to think about spiritual options, actually. Not necessarily religious options, although we do kind of touch on that. For me, it's more of a spiritual kind of consideration, I think.
I think just also remembering the kind of importance and visceral nature of theatre. Probably come to the theatre more, because you've never experienced anything like being in this room. And there's amazing films out at the moment, and there's some fantastic things on at the National and in town. But this, I think, will send the shivers down your spine.
Yeah.
I think it's quite a personal experience for people as they come and watch it, and I think it will be quite self-reflective on what they take from it, whether it's a kind of sense of what community means to them, about connecting with people in their lives that maybe they're not connecting with, a kind of sense that we can make a difference if we all bandy together, that however terrible the news is, which it seems to be pretty awful all the time at the moment, that there's kind of hope for something better to come out of it.
Yeah, hope's a good one.
Yeah.
And just like knowing that I don't know what I'm saying. It's going to sound mad, but just like people are nice.
Yeah, that doesn't sound mad at all. Absolutely.
People can be really like kind to each other, and we should be kind.
We should make that choice to be kind to each other and not
just come together and live in a happy world.
Yeah, and that you can choose to make a difference. You can choose to make a change in your life and hope for better things. Also, just like that Welsh. There are exciting Welsh stories to be told, and
and Wales is amazing.
Wales is amazing.
Yeah.